All right, things that annoy me. So I was recently commenting on a online forum thread that was started by, of all people, a very well-to-do lawyer who stated that rich people should be paying more than they are, and if they were, then maybe we could pay teachers more. And mind you, this thread was started by definitely who seemed to be a very well to do lawyer, probably in his 60s, maybe even 70s. And this gentleman was clearly going on lavish vacations with his wife. And he's very, very, very privileged, even though he doesn't seem to be a billionaire by any means, but he's very, very likely to be a millionaire at the very least. He seems to own his own law firm. And yeah, I don't know if he's just extremely ignorant and uneducated in economics and the market and financing, or if he actually is educated and experienced in finance and the market, and he's just throwing out headline style terminology to just throw off the general public. In this thread, he's basically faced with someone who had brought attention to that basically the most wealthy in the country, let's say the 1%, account for 40% of taxes. So even though these people represent about 1% of our population, these ultra rich, privileged, I don't even know if I want to say privileged, takes a lot of work to be a billionaire. A lot of hard work. Takes a lot of hard work to be a millionaire. So I don't even know if I'm going to call these people privileged. You know, maybe a portion of them are privileged, but I think a good portion of them worked really hard to get where they are. But, you know, these 1% of our population, they're not paying 1% of the taxes. They're paying about 40% of the taxes, according to someone within this thread. And this gentleman did not dispute that, so I assume it's pretty correct. However, he said, despite how much they pay, they can pay even more. He went on to say that Warren Buffett, one of the most famous rich people ever, pays a very, very, very small amount of taxes compared to his overall wealth. Something like 0.001% of whatever he owns every year, whatever he pays taxes on. What this gentleman fails to mention is that Warren Buffett is one of the most famous rich billionaires that lives basically like a commoner. So Warren Buffett takes a salary of $100,000 a year, and he has done such for many, 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 many years, and he has not taken a raise. So he pays taxes on that $100,000 a year. He drives a very modest vehicle. Don't ask me what it is. I think it's a Toyota Corolla. Something along those lines. And he lives in a very, from my understanding, very much a very modest home, such as like a ranch. And it's not worth very much from my understanding. So he just lives like a normal person. And people have, you know, these billionaires, they have two sides to them. They have their everyday life, which is their weekly paycheck and their home and their vehicle and what they do day to day and their food. And there's another part of them which is really inherently just figurative. Warren Buffett does not have $1 billion in his local bank account. He doesn't. Not many billionaires do. This wealth is figurative. He's a pretty important figure within Berkshire Hathaway, which is his corporation. And a lot of his wealth comes from his stocks within that company, and I'm sure other companies. And these stocks are worth, figuratively, a certain amount of money, in theory. But we all know that anything on the market could be worth something in theory, but we know in practice that there has to be someone on the other end to buy whatever it is that you have that you want to be selling. So, I may have some sort of antique that in theory is worth $13,000. But in practice, if I list that on Craigslist or eBay, am I going to fetch $13,000? I may fetch $6,000 or $7,000. Again, it's all figurative. It's in theory. So this is the theoretical value we are placing on billionaires. This is almost how every billionaire on the planet is kind of figured to be a billionaire. They do not have $1 billion in cash. Again, not many people have that much cash laying around. They have this billionaire status from a basic theoretical calculation of the value of their position within a company or the stocks with which they hold. Now, we all know if a billionaire were theoretically to attempt to sell every stock that they own, there is no way that they would live up to the expectation of our theoretical calculation. Because the moment they start selling, there has to be buyers on the other end to buy that stock. And if a billionaire starts selling his stock, with each share that is sold, the value is going to be dropping. Sale after sale after sale. So by the end of the entire liquidation of all the stocks and assets that this individual owns, it could be 30% of our theoretical calculation. So they're not really billionaires. They're, that's really just theoretical. And again, to say Warren Buffett pays 0.001% taxes of whatever it's a junk statement, because he actually pays what he's supposed to pay on $100,000 a year. And if he happens to sell stocks that year, then he pays appropriate taxes on those stocks as well, just like everyone else. And the thing is, he's not going to pay taxes on any shares of his company he owns. Just like this individual who is a lawyer and apparently highly educated, so I'm surprised he doesn't know this stuff. But I'm sure this individual has things such as a Roth IRA or 401k, which are stocks and shares that you accumulate over your lifetime, and you do not pay taxes on those. And through those retirement type investments, the whole idea is to pay no or minimal taxes by the time you're of retirement age. But if you happen to sell these prior to that, or if you own personal securities outside of your Roth IRA or 401k, you pay taxes on the sale of those stocks at the time of the sale. That's how it works. So Warren Buffett doesn't really care for money. Like, he's a very frugal person. He has all this money accumulating, and guess what? If he never sells and converts that to cash, he's just never going to pay taxes on that. Someday, the government will get their cut one way or the other. Someday he may sell, or someday he may pass that on as inheritance, and there's going to be inheritance tax. Or he's going to pass away and leave his money to no one. It's going to go to the state, the country. So either way, the government is going to get their money. So it's just funny to me that there are seemingly highly educated people out there just rah, 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 burn the rich. Guess what? This guy, as far as I could tell, he is the rich. He's going all these crazy lavish vacations. He's got all this cash, and he's just spending way more than the average person. And now he's spreading that someone like Warren Buffett, who, theoretically is a billionaire and doesn't, as far as I know, go on these lavish vacations, just goes to work and back and lives in his little ranch and drives his little Toyota Corolla every day. He's just living a very frugal life. But this guy thinks that Warren Buffett should be paying more taxes. And, it's just not the case. So, at the end of the day, the way the United States works, we are, I have not explored every country on the face of the planet, but we are one of the only countries that, we are a country that basically allows your average everyday citizen to benefit and participate in our market and economic production, within this country. So we have public stocks, and those stocks are more accessible than really any time in history. If you are over the age of 18 and you own any sort of smartphone such as iPhone or Android, you can download very easily the app for a brokerage and sign up for an account, and you can begin buying stocks for companies within our economic and industrial output for our country. So if we're doing well, you're going to be doing well. It hasn't always been like that. There have been nations within this earth, within the history of this planet, where you had no right to the economic production of a nation. That production belonged to in theory, the people, aka the government. So you had no way out of your life. You got paid what you got paid. You got your wages, and there was no retirement, no Roth IRA, no 401k. And you got what you got, and that was it. There was no way out, because the government owned everything. There were other nations within this world where wasn't a government that had the benefit of economic production. It was either a dictator or a monarch. So again, you're in a position where you are a subject and you make what you make, and that is it. You are completely at the mercy of everyone above you, and you have no way out. Here in the United States, regardless of your age, other than you have to be over 18, age, race, sex, class, birthright, doesn't matter what you are. If you have a cell phone, you can go on your app store and download E-Trade, Robinhood, probably TD and Ameritrade, whatever, any of these brokerage apps, and you can start buying stock tomorrow. Now you're able to participate in the market. What can the market do for you? Your savings account makes what? 1% interest per year? Maybe 2. Like, I've seen some sketchy 3 or 4% situations out there online. If you want to take the risk on those types of banks, go for it. But that's kind of what's out there. I think most people are happy with 1% interest. Well, guess what? The market produces about 10% on average, so 10 times better than that. But it can produce basically 10x. It can produce 100% gain. It can produce, which is 2x basically, but it can produce 1,000% gain. If you're really, 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 really in a good company, you can get 1,000% gain. One example of this, look up NVIDIA. They are leading the AI revolution. They already have a very solid business with graphics cards for computers and gaming. They also have a server business, so servers are huge. They're required to basically run our internet. So they're actually really well established already. Now they are also leading the AI revolution. So if you look at NVIDIA, that company for a lot of people has represented a 1,000% gain in a very short amount of time. What does 1,000% mean? That's basically, maybe not exact, but it's about 10x. What does that mean? It means $100 turned into 1,000. $1,000 turned into 10,000. 10,000 turned into 100,000. 100,000 turned into 1,000,000. That's what's possible on the stock market. That very concept is what makes rich people rich. Makes millionaires millionaires, billionaires billionaires. They don't get to be millionaires by going to work at the local supermarket. Almost all millionaires and billionaires got that way through the power of the economic and industrial production of a country. In this case, the United States, which you have access to right through your cell phone for the first time in human history. as of the last 10 or so years. In the past, that power is what drove monarchs and dictators, and the subjects of such were prohibited from participating in said economic and industrial production. With that being said, you are not going to download an app, get into stocks, and become rich tomorrow. It takes time. If all you can afford is $100, $1,000 is a reasonable goal. If 1,000 is what you can afford, 10,000 is a reasonable goal. If 10,000 is all you can afford, 100,000 is a reasonable goal. If you have $100,000, $1 million is a reasonable goal. A 10x should be your goal. That can take 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. More often than not, if you're getting a 10% gain per year, which is like a comfortable average, put it this way, to get 100% gain, it's going to take about 7 years on average. 5 to 7 years. It's going to be about 100% gain. So if you put 1,000 into the market, 5 to 7 years in a nice, comfortable, cushy stock, probably going to be 2,000 in 5 to 7 years. But if you work hard like a millionaire and a billionaire, and you know what you're doing, and you're not just falling back on all the companies that your financial advisors invest in for your Roth IRA and 401k, if you are really, really, really intelligent, which is what most of these millionaires and billionaires are. In fact, I would tend to have a little more respect. And I'm not saying I don't have respect for someone just because they won the lottery, but I will say that requires a tremendous amount of luck. But I will say, on average, a millionaire and a billionaire worked a lot harder to get to where they are than a millionaire did because he hit the lottery. And that's why when you're a millionaire through the lottery, chances are in 5 years, you're not only going to not be a millionaire, but you're going to be probably worse off than you were before because you didn't earn that. You were handed that, and you don't have the financial tools and experience, the trials and tribulations. This is a big philosophical concept, that people cover in philosophy courses in college. The importance of trials and tribulation. So, that sort of thing, you go through these trials of life and you get to where you are. You don't have that with the lottery, but a lot of these millionaires and billionaires did have that. So that's why you have millionaires like, I'm not even going to mention them. You know who's that, who it is. A lot of them, they go bankrupt, and all of a sudden they're millionaires again. They go bankrupt, they're millionaires again, because they know how to do it. It's actually, they broke the code of the universe, because it's a lot simpler than you think it is. But yeah, the rich, they don't need to pay more taxes. They pay what they're supposed to, and they do account for about 40% of the income, even though they're only 1% of the population. What are we spending the money on? You could have unlimited amounts of money, and you're just going to spend it and spend it and spend it. So the problem is we have these people in charge of spending the money, and they didn't go through the trials and tribulation. They're just handed it. So they don't know what they're doing. They usually don't. So they got to be controlled. But rich people definitely aren't the problem. Rich people are actually a benefit to you if you choose to exercise your right to the economic and industrial production, because you have stocks And the way that they grow is people are adding their money to what's called a market cap. So, when I was graduating high school years and years and years ago, the average maximum market cap for these companies was like $300 million. Like, that was like out of this world. Nowadays, they're like 300 billion. I'm sorry. But now, all these years later, they're like 3 trillion, 4 trillion. Like, we got $3 trillion companies, $4 trillion companies. That's market cap. So as the market cap of a company grows, that's people adding their money to this business. What that's doing is it's growing your value. So if you own a share, as the market cap goes up, if the market cap goes up 10%, your share that you own goes up 10%. If it goes up 20%, the market cap, your share goes up 20%. How does the market cap go up? It goes up by rich people, most often millionaires and billionaires, adding their money to your company. So the rich people are helping you, because without them, if they're giving their money to the government instead of the company in which you own your shares, then they can't add their money to your company and you can't get your growth. So rich people, they help you in that regard, because without them, your money is not going to grow. They are investors, and that's what investment is, and that's keeping all the money private so that you can choose the way you want to spend your money. This is the benefit to us as Americans. If we live in a monarchy, we are subjects. We are subjected to our life the way the family and the monarch wants us to live our life, and we're never going to know anything different. But within the United States here, we can generally elevate, above and beyond our age, race, sex, class, birth rate, all that. And we can elevate and live the life, the best we want to live our life. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on the rich. I'm really, really, really surprised this highly educated lawyer doesn't know how the stock market works. He clearly has a 401k and Roth IRA. I'm pretty sure he admitted to it. And I know he does not expect to pay taxes on that, so I don't know why he thinks Warren Buffett would have to pay taxes on his just because he's rich. Makes no sense. Warren Buffett would pay eventually if he decides to sell. And if he never decides to sell and he dies, we all know what happens to the money then. Taxes go the way of taxes, one way or the other. Whether it's going to be tomorrow or 20 years from now. In fact, Warren Buffett is so good at what he does, the government's better off waiting, because in 20 years, Warren Buffett's going to be 100 times richer, which means way more taxes. And the thing with governments, they don't care what happens year to year to year. They think in 20-year terms. So who cares what Warren Buffett is doing or paying? The more you tax him now, the less you're going to get later. And with inflation the way it is, you're going to need a lot of money later. So hopefully this talk has been a little enlightening for people. I really like to try to help people. I have people that private message me all the time, trying to kind of better their life in various facets. One of the ways I like to help people is just to try to financially educate people. I don't tell people what to do, but I do like to let people know what is possible through the stock market. We're not talking a measly 1% interest on a savings account at the bank. You get a CD and you get like 6 or 7% interest. We're talking even better than that. We're talking 10%, 100%, 1,000% off the stock market. There is a downside to that. With higher potential gains, you have higher risk. Savings account, you're not going to lose your money. CD, you're not going to lose your money. Stocks, you gain access to 10, 100, and 1,000% potential, but you also gain the risk of total loss. And that is what people like Warren Buffett face day to day to day. In a Great Depression-like crash, yes, he's a billionaire, but just like that, in 2 to 3 days, you can lose 90% of your value. You're no longer a billionaire. No longer a billionaire. That's if the country takes a complete nosedive. That is the risk. That is the risk of being an investor. Now, people want the taxes from these people, but they're not going to help them out when they lose 90% of the value. No one around the Great Depression said, "Hey, I'm so sorry you lost 90% of your money. Here's some money." No, not going to happen. No one cares. No one's going to help Warren Buffett. No one's looking out for him. Yes, companies get bailouts. Some of them do. I suspect the majority of those bailouts are because I would suspect maybe the pension that the members of Congress get might depend on how well these companies are doing. That's my guess, but someone feel free to input on that. I don't know everything, but anyway, it's been a nice talk. That's it. Just talking about rich people and people seemingly, either ignorant and uneducated, but when they seemingly are educated, it's more suspect that these educated people, very wealthy people, by the way, are just going on these forums trying to persuade those who are actually uneducated. There's nothing wrong with uneducated people, but there are younger people on these forums that are they have sponge-like minds, and certain individuals do not want a lot of people realizing the freedom they have as an American. They do not want to teach these people that, yes, they can participate in the economic and industrial production of this country. They don't want them to know that. They want to hold them down for some reason. And it's kind of gross. So instead of actually educating people, they use like these sorts of headlines where, they do the math and they're like, whatever the taxes on 100,000 are, let's figure out, what percent of like all the stocks that Warren Buffett owns. It's like, 0.001% of all the stocks he owns. That's crazy. Like, it's not even relevant. You make 100,000 a year as a lawyer. Probably more than that. You probably make more than Warren Buffett. Like, this guy probably makes 200 to 300,000 from what I could see. So he's paying taxes on 200 to 300,000. I'd like to see him pay taxes on 200 to 300,000 plus taxes on whatever he has in his Roth IRA, which I'm guessing is in the 3 to 5 million range, but at the age he was at. So yeah, that's just my thoughts. Again, it's been a very long video, but it's been fun. So I like doing these every once in a while. And yeah, if you're definitely into the stocks, just give me a follow, because I'm going to be putting out a lot more tips, and feel free to comment. I love comments. If you have any questions or need help getting your life in order, I don't have all the answers, but I will help in any way I can, because there are two yous. There's your daily job you, work, go to work, eat, sleep, that's you. But a lot of people have a secondary you, which is like emergency you. Like, what if I lost my job? Like, how much money do I have to fall back on? Like, what if I lost my home? Like, how much do I have to fall back on? Do you have zero to fall back on? Oh, that is horrible. Do you have debt? Which means not only do you have no money, you might have $20,000 car loan, and now you're negative. You have negative value. I'm very much about helping people keep their secondary you positive as much as possible, whether it's $1,000, $10,000, $100,000. That's what I like for people. I don't like to see people going on, these big, huge spending sprees and, going crazy with life. I just like people to be financially secure, and if anything happened to them, lost a job, lost a house, whatever, that they have the best shot at being okay. Because no one's going to help you. Sometimes you get help, but you can't really count on it. So the best thing we can do for ourselves, especially as we age, is just making sure we're kind of taking care of our secondary you. Guys like this lawyer really, really, really don't help the situation. They just sit there and blame all the problems on the rich people, who actually can be a huge benefit to the secondary you. That's it for tonight. It's been 37 minutes. It's like 12:30 at night. Good night, everyone, and give me a follow if you want to follow my crazy rants and other stuff.